a mysterious case occurred at a place known as Death Mountain, which has remained unsolved with many unanswered questions for over 60 years. A group of young people embarked on an adventure, unaware that it would be their last time seeing the sunlight. None of them survived the trip. Their bodies showed strange and inexplicable signs. Many horrific injuries, torn clothes, one with a fractured skull, another without a tongue. Many theories have been proposed, but some people still consider the case to be a mystery, from attacks by snowmen or aliens, or possibly some military experiment. And the case I'm referring to is the Dyatlov Pass incident. On January 23, 1959, in the freezing winter of 1959, a group of young explorers decided to conquer the majestic Ural Mountains. This group was led by Igor Dyatlov, a passionate and determined 23-year-old man. Joining him on this journey were 8 companions, including 7 men and 2 women. They were all university students, young people full of exploration desire and love for adventure. Their goal was to conquer the Mampupuna Plateau. According to a diary entry from a member of the climbing team, Dyatlov said that if this climb went smoothly, he would lead everyone on a completely new path. With meticulous and careful preparation, the young explorers began their journey, hoping to be the first to conquer the Mampupuna Plateau in the freezing winter. They had a clear plan. If they couldn't reach the plateau within the set time, they would return on February 12th. But when more than a month passed, they still couldn't reach the village of Vichy as initially planned. Time seemed to pass slowly, each day on the mountain becoming more severe. However, none of them could have guessed that this trip would become one of the biggest mysteries of the 20th century. What they expected to be an adventure exploration turned into a horrifying and mysterious story. February 16 missing. February 12th. The agreed date for the explorers to contact their school arrived. However, there was no news from them initially. It was thought that bad weather might have delayed them a few days, which is entirely normal in winter. But when February 16th arrived, and there was still no news from the explorers, the families of the team members began contacting the school, worried about their safety. Finally, on February 20th, with still no information about the explorers, the family's concern escalated. They urged the school to launch a search and rescue operation. In response, the school sent the club leader to head a skilled search and rescue team. With faint hope, the search team began their journey. February 26th, the scene. After several days of searching, on February 26th, the rescue team discovered the abandoned camp of the explorers on the slope of Kholat Syakhl, 1,097 meters above sea level, just 5 kilometers from the Otorten Peak. As they approached and examined closely, they discovered an astonishing detail: a large hole in the tent. This was not the result of weather or wildlife, but it seemed to have been cut from inside the tent. The tent that once sheltered the explorers was now a wreck. Half of the tent had collapsed, the rest covered in snow. Inside was empty, with no signs of life. However, their belongings and clothes were still there, as if they had just left. One side of the tent had been cut with a knife from inside, indicating someone had tried to escape. A terrifying event had occurred in the tent, forcing them to flee into the night. Outside the tent, a clear trail of footprints was left on the white snow. Some of these footprints were shod, some were only in socks, and some were even barefoot on the snow. In a snowy mountain in winter, such behavior is almost. The rescue team discovered footprints leading to the forest. On the other side of the mountain, a common method used to deal with avalanches, the tent was cut from inside, indicating an emergency situation. However, there were no signs of an avalanche at the scene and footprints remained on the snow. These clues left many unanswered questions. What happened in that tent? What forced them to flee into the freezing snowy night? And finally, where did they go? Investigating the clues, after surveying the forest, the rescue team found two male victims under a fir tree on March 2nd. They were Yuri Krivonishenko, 24, and Yuri Doroshenko, 22. They were barefoot and only wearing thin underwear at temperatures below -20 degrees. In severe hypothermia, respiration and heart rate can decrease to dangerous levels, leading to unconsciousness or death. Before losing consciousness, victims may undress themselves, a phenomenon called paradoxical undressing. However, the clothes of the two victims were not found. Under the fir tree were traces of fire and signs of climbing, suggesting they may have tried to find their way back to the tent. FRO on March 3rd to 5th. The rescue team found the bodies of team leader Dyatlov, Zinaida Kolmogorova, and Rustam Slobodin. They were found 300 meters, 630 meters, and 480 meters apart, respectively, and seemed to have fallen while trying to return to the tent. The bodies of the 5 victims were taken to the hospital, and forensic doctors confirmed that they had died from cold. There were no signs of a fight or murder. Rustam Slobodin had a head injury, possibly from hitting the ground or a rock. There were no traces of others at the scene, so the police ruled out murder. They believed that due to a small avalanche, the climbing team had self-rescued by running towards the mountain slope. When the avalanche ended, they decided to return to the tent. However, winter nights had caused them to lose heat and the first 2 members died under the tree. The remaining people put on the clothes of the 2 victims and continued moving, but eventually also died on their way back to the tent. 2 months after the accident, when snow began to melt, it took a month for rescuers to find 4 other bodies 75 meters from the fir tree. Near the fir tree, they found a pair of black cotton sport pants and a light brown woolen sweater. After digging deep 3.5 meters, they discovered a pile of clothes and some cut branches. These clothes belonged to the first 2 victims who died under the fir tree. Later, at a stream about 20 meters from the snow hole, investigators discovered bodies buried under snow and finally excavated 4 last victims, 4 meters from the snow hole. The 4 victims were Lyudmila Dubinina, 21 years old, Alexander Kolovatov, 25 years old, Nikolay Thibault-Brignolas, 24 years old, and Semyon Zolotaryev, 38 years old. Based on their appearance, it can be inferred that these 4 people were not injured. Based on the location of the snow hole, it can be inferred that 4 people fled towards the foot of the mountain, and then accidentally fell into a ravine and died or were killed. It can be inferred that after the death of the first 2 members, the climbing team was divided into 2 small groups. One group ran towards the tent, while the other group tried to go down to seek help, but unfortunately both groups could not survive. Horrifying details. If everything was as simple as that, the case might have been solved. However, after the autopsy of the 4 victims, bizarre and horrifying details began to emerge, rendering all theories about the accident meaningless. Their deaths were not like the first 5 victims, and there were abnormalities in their bodies. 1. None of these 4 people died from freezing. They all died from fatal injuries. 2. The entire rib cage of Lyudmila Dubinina and Semyon Zolotaryev was broken, with broken bones pressing into the heart and lungs. Such a severe injury is equivalent to a head-on collision with a car moving at 80 km/h. 3. The skull of Nicolae Thibault-Brignoles was completely fractured and severely deformed. 4. The neck of Alexander Kolevatov was broken. 5. But such injuries could be explained by a fall and strong impact, or the effect of an avalanche. However, the facial cavity and soft tissue, the nasal bone, lips, and tongue of Lyudmila Dubinina had disappeared, while Semyon Zolotaryev had lost both eyeballs, and these missing parts have not yet been found. 6. The members of this group wore more clothes than the first 5 people. But what's more mysterious is that their clothes contained high levels of radiation. The forensic team's investigators concluded Lyudmila Dubinina and Semyon Zolotaryev suffered multiple rib fractures, Dubinina on both sides and symmetrical, Zolotaryev on one side. Both bled in the heart muscle and chest cavity, indicating they were injured while still alive due to a large force. The injury did not damage the soft tissue of the chest cavity, but resembled injuries caused by a shock wave from a bomb. Closing the case, the official Soviet report stated that the climbing team died due to an insurmountable force, meaning they died under a large impact, consistent with the autopsy results. This insurmountable force is thought to be possibly related to secret weapons. Based on the vague attitude of Soviet officials, the Dyatlov Pass incident could be a man-made accident intended to conceal a secret. The author of the book, Dyatlov Pass, also had to admit that the Dyatlov Pass event is the most mysterious and strange case he has ever known. In February 2019, Russia reopened the investigation into the case, considering only 3 theories: an avalanche, a slab avalanche, or a storm. However, the investigative agency could not explain how the avalanche occurred. The possibility of a murder case has decreased. Before the mystical explanations, researchers say that the scientific basis related to avalanches is the most reasonable. Although many theories have been proposed about the case, for many people it remains a mystery even though there are explanations. If you know any information about this case, please comment below to let me know.